welcome to another discipleship development process instructional video. And we are continuing to try to provide some practical knowledge and understanding of the process, and in hopes that we can do our best to remove any obstacles and challenges that you may face as a part of wanting to grow and develop in your relationship with God, and using this process as a part of that. So I want to focus in this video basically on the cards, and just a little bit of explanation of what you find on those cards, sort of the purpose of the cards. I know we live in a digital age, and many people do a lot of things in a digital format, but I think there is still some value, and I know there are still those who prefer something a little more tangible than what you can see on a screen. So there's a variety of factors that have gone into us taking this approach with this process. So our goal is to continue to develop more and more levels of discipleship, because, as has been said, the process of growing and developing in our relationship with God and in ministry is an ongoing process. We don't ever graduate from that process of growing and developing. As long as we are breathing, there is still room to grow and develop. And so it is our goal to continue to develop additional levels of discipleship as we continue on, so that as you and others like you grow and mature, that we are still doing our part to provide the resources and guidance and suggestions for things that you're able to do to be able to grow. So understand that this process was intended to be developed from the standpoint of basically a brand new believer. So someone who has just been born again. And what is a path, what is a process that they can have to purposefully develop and grow in their relationship with God. Obviously, there are others involved in this process now, and I would imagine in the future there will be others that they are not brand new in their relationship with God. They haven't just recently been born again, but they have years of a relationship with God, and perhaps years of ministry involvement already. And so it can apply, obviously, to that as well. In fact, some of the very encouraging feedback over this process is from people who have been in a relationship with Jesus Christ for years, some even decades, and people who have been involved in ministry in sort of some significant ministry roles for a significant period of time. So ultimately, it is the goal and desire that this is beneficial to everyone. But again, it was developed from the standpoint of helping a brand new believer, brand new child of God, someone who has just been born again, helping them to get on the pathway to growing, because we do not just grow spiritually by default or without effort. We have to be actively engaged in that process. And so, again, let me just kind of, I know this may be very practical, but just talk to you a little bit about the cards that are available. One of the things that you're going to find basically on each card, and the exception of this is the discipleship intro card, but with all the other cards, you're going to find three basic areas on each card. And so the first area is going to be complete the following. And this, as we've talked about in, I believe, the last video, the elements of this process, the complete the following is going to include the Living Logos, various Living Logos books, other recommended books, and then classes and video series. So those are the basic elements that you're going to find under the complete the following. And then the second area is going to be practical application. And this, in essence, is just that. It's practical ways in which you are growing and developing and applying what it is that the things that you are learning in the complete the following section, beginning to put those into practice, because the goal and our purpose is not simply to increase your knowledge. Going back to what the Apostle Paul said in Ephesians 4 and verses 11 and 12, that we have these ministries that are given to the church, and the purpose of those is for the perfecting or for the equipping of saints to be able to do the ministry that God has called them to do. So we want to take the books and the videos and the classes, and we want all of that to be applied in sort of real life situations, real life ministry situations. So the practical application part will include a variety of things to be involved in, a variety of things that expected that you have already done, or areas of ministry or involvement or application that is expected at kind of that level. And then the third and final part of those basic areas is electives. And so again, the electives are filled through our life courses. And there is no requirement on which life courses that you have to take. Any of the life courses that are available, and you select the ones that you're interested in, the ones that you feel like are applicable to you, that will be beneficial to you. You pick the course, and it works as an elective. And so those are the three basic areas. And then actually the final part of that you will find on the back of these cards is sort of a sign-off. And kind of depending on the level you're at, it will determine who is to sign off on your card. So, for example, on the discipleship intro, because of the expectations that are on in that level, a person is just looking for their deacon. That's, again, the person that leads the oikos, the small group that they're a part of, and then as well as the Bible study teacher to sign off on that. But as a person goes to the next level of discipleship and development, they will find a few additional sign-offs on those. One of the questions that gets asked is, do I have to fill out a card? Do I need an actual card? And the basic answer to that is yes. And there's several different reasons for that. And one of the very basic reasons for that is for the process of accountability. The Bible teaches submission and accountability, and a part of our spiritual growth and development is accountability. And I know most of us, our flesh does not like accountability. And, we spend the first 18 years of our lives growing up to be able to get out on our own and be independent and have no one tell us what to do, which is actually quite comical, because it seems like to me the guidance that I've had to live under, or the expectations, are actually a lot more demanding once I hit 18 than they were when I was still in high school or still at home, even younger years than high school. And so we kind of fight accountability and submission, but it is an extremely important component of our relationship with God and of ministry. And so really one of the very simple, practical reasons for these cards and for you actually having them and using them is a part of a process of accountability, because on the completion of those cards, we are going to be asking you to turn them in because for a number of other reasons that I won't take time right now to get into, we will be using we will be sort of tracking the progress. And I will give you one kind of basic reason for that. I think as a person's ministry involvement increases and sort of their sphere of influence increases, I believe that we have a responsibility to try to ensure that people have properly grown and developed in their relationship with God, in their knowledge and their understanding of the Word of God, since we, I believe, as apostolics, tend to take our doctrine and the role of it, I think, a little more significantly than some others do. I think it's very important that we try to make sure that people that are in roles of leadership and looked at as being an official sanctioned leader, that we are on the same page in what we are standing for and teaching, whether that's teaching by our words or also teaching by our actions. And so this process is also a way of us being able to ensure that people are growing and developing, and that as we give them a level of responsibility, that hopefully they have matured in their relationship with God to a point to be able to handle that level of responsibility. So as far as getting these cards, again, back to the point of this being first and foremost designed as a process for new believers to be able to grow and develop. And so we are encouraging everyone to be a part of our Welcome to Antioch 4-session Welcome to Antioch series. And upon the completion of that, a person gets the Discipleship intro card. And then upon the completion of each level, depending on where they're at in their development and their growth, someone will be responsible for making sure that they get the next level of discipleship and the next discipleship card, so that they know what is available and the things that they can be doing to continue and to grow in their relationship with God and in their ministry. Because I'm going to keep repeating it. We have two primary purposes as to why we are here: love God and love others. And again, love others could sort of be summarized by the word ministry. So we're here to have a relationship with God. We're here to be a part of ministry in whatever area God has created us and called us to. And so we want people growing and developing because of those two purposes. So I would encourage you, especially realize some of you may end up watching these videos a significant period of time after we have launched this process, so this doesn't really apply to you, but to everyone that is a part of Antioch Central, at this point you actually should have all three of these cards in your possession and beginning to work on them. And so if you have not done that, I would encourage you to get them and make sure that you are consciously working towards the growth and development of your relationship with God and of your ministry. One of the questions that's come up, and perhaps maybe your question is, is there a specific order that I have to either read what I'm supposed to read or attend classes that I am supposed to attend? And the answer to that is there is no specific order. We have, our goal in this is not to sort of regiment everyone or mandate everyone be at the exact same place at the same time, because we are all at sort of different levels of development. And in addition to that, in different seasons of our lives, God is kind of dealing with different things in us as individuals. And so you may be in an area that where God's dealing with you about something that one of these books or one of these classes is very applicable to you at that point, whereas someone else in the season they're in, that same thing is not as applicable to them at that point, but it's something that eventually we want everyone to get. And so whether it's the classes, the books, or the videos, it's kind of up to where your hunger and your desire and what God is leading you to do. I will say that with regards to level 1 and level 2, I would encourage you to put a priority in level 1 on the Living Logos Spiritual Growth 1 book, and then when you get to level 2 on the Spiritual Growth 2 Living Logos book. And the reason for that is because both of these books are really some very foundational, fundamental principles to our relationship with God, our walk with God, ministry, etc. So I would encourage you to prioritize those. Beyond that, again, it's kind of what God is dealing with you on, and then also obviously with regards to the classes, what is available or what are the upcoming classes is also a factor, obviously, in what classes you're taking. A little bit of a side note, and probably we'll address this in more detail in a future video, but we will be accumulating all of the video resources into one individual platform or hub, if you will, online. And just very briefly, there will be you as a person involved in this process. You will get your own login to this website, and then the various videos and even some of the classes that we will be teaching live, we will also be turning into a video series so that some of these things people are not having to wait until the next time it's taught. But if they're hungry and they're ready, they've got the desire and the time to do it, that they can access those very easily and in a timely manner. So as I said, I will probably spend almost a whole video in the future kind of talking to you about that and that process, but just wanted to kind of mention that now, and again, as we try to continue to express the way this process is supposed to work. Another kind of very practical but simple question is kind of, what do I do when I have actually completed this card and have it signed off on? The simplest thing you could do is there's a drop box that's located at the top of the stairs to the side entry of the sanctuary, and you can just simply drop it in there, and then it will be given to the appropriate persons to then deal with and make sure that the records that we are keeping are accurate and up to date. So that's kind of the I think the primary things I wanted to sort of cover about the actual discipleship cards. At this point, we do not have them in a readily available electronic version, and in all honesty, that's not really something that's in the foreseeable future either, as much as it may be a bit old-fashioned to use paper and pen. That is the method we have opted for at this point. And so let me just kind of one final just sort of point into the whole process, not specifically to the cards, but just a final point and sort of perhaps either a reminder or an encouragement to you. Many have asked, and I would anticipate in the future many more will ask, what is the what is the time frame that I am supposed to complete this in? And there really is not one. And there's not one for various reasons. And I have already communicated those, but let me just touch on a couple of them in this context briefly. There's not a time frame because, again, this is not intended to be a program or some kind of a rigid, I don't want to say process, because we're actually, process is what this is, but it's not intended to be a rigid, dictated, mandated process. It is a process that we want you and the Spirit of the Lord to kind of work on the timing. I anticipate there will be those that, because of their spiritual development and several other just kind of basic factors, that they will kind of devour these things and sort of blow through them, not to rush through them and get them over, but just because they're hungry and they want more, and so they're constantly trying to get more. But it is the desire that this gets into your spirit. I know for me personally, and I think others probably can relate. I feel like if I were to go back to college now in my late 40s, that I probably would learn a whole lot more, because I had really one goal when I was in college, and that was learning enough to pass the class and to get the grades that I needed to get to be able to pass. I hate to admit, but I was not the greatest of students, and a lot of times that really was my focus. And thankfully, I can look back, and there are lots of things that I did learn and things that have been very beneficial to me from college. But I also feel like if I was doing it now, my whole approach would be different. And that's what we want with this process. I don't want anyone to feel like, well, I need to get these boxes checked off and hurry up and check all my boxes. And I know for some, with our personality, that's a little bit of the way we are. If there's something else to do, I want to hurry up and get it done, and we're sort of driven. But we don't want you driven in that context. We want you driven by your hunger and your desire, but not by a pressure that I've got to get this completed. I've got to hurry up and get this. I got to get this done. In essence, I guess I would encourage you to think of it this way, in the context of running. And actually, the Bible uses running as an analogy for our walk with God. But so think of it in this context, that this really is intended to be a marathon. It's not intended to be a sprint. It's not intended to be, a 100-meter dash. Hurry up and get to the finish line and be done. It's a marathon, and most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with a marathon, but one of the key elements, and I've never run a marathon, and I have no plan to ever run a marathon, but I understand a little bit about them. And one of the key elements is you have to pace yourself, because there's a lot of runners that the gun sounds and they take off from the starting line, and they're ahead of everybody else. But the more skilled, the more experienced runners they're not intimidated by that. They're not intimidated by somebody running out in front of them, because they have learned to pace themselves, and they have learned what the pace is to be able to ultimately finish the race. And so as most of you that will be watching this video, as your pastor, it is my goal, my desire for you to finish this marathon, not to get to the finish line of a sprint. And so between you and Jesus, pace yourselves. And if you're looking around, or you're hearing from your friends and from others that they're farther along, they've gotten more done, they're almost finished, as long as you know that you are at peace with where you're at, because that's where the Lord wants you, then that's all you need. Paul tells us we're not supposed to compare ourselves among ourselves. We're not supposed to judge ourselves by ourselves. And so as long as you are submitted to the Spirit of the Lord and to the process, and the process, not only this particular discipleship process, but what God is doing in your life and in my life is way beyond just the elements of this process. And so as long as you're submitted to that and where God wants you, that's all that matters. And if people pass by you because they're running faster than you are, don't let that cause you to feel pressure that you've just got to speed up because of that. Because there's a good chance, as the old story of the tortoise and the hare, you might eventually end up by simply plodding along consistently and faithfully pass by some of the very ones that sort of blew by you. So I hope and trust this has been helpful. And once again, between myself and many others, I would encourage you, if you've got questions not only about this process, but in general about how you can grow and develop in your relationship with God, myself and other leaders are readily available and happy to do whatever we can to help and encourage you to grow in your relationship with God and in the ministry that God has called you to. God bless you, and thank you for taking time to watch this video.